Hi, I'm Julie Hartow and I'm the founder of the Mum Almighty mentoring program, which is called Reignited and Returning. And I help mums to reclaim their identity, to build their confidence and recognise their true self-worth. And today I thought I'd do some career tips for you. So I thought I'd share some of the secrets of how to best prepare yourself for going for an interview. So the first thing I want to say is to get really prepared for an interview is to use the job specification to its fullest extent. Okay, the job specification is really your guide when you're going for a job interview. So if this job specification lists the exact things that they are looking for, you need to make sure that you are thinking through each one of those and asking yourself two questions. And the first question is, how do I meet each of these requirements? How do I meet each of these requirements? And number two, what experience have I had before that demonstrates that I have met or meet this criteria? Okay? And then what you need to do is come up for an example or a scenario for each of those criteria and note it down, because when they ask you a competency-based question, which is going to be something like, tell me about your time in your work history when you have done X, Y, and Z, Julie. And then you know that you've got to answer them with that particular moment in time in your work history when you used that. Okay? So write those down. Okay, and then the next piece of advice is to look up general interview questions. It's a pretty easy thing to do and lots of people do it this way, but look for a site or a YouTube channel that's been recommended and receives lots of tips and comments, okay? Tip number 5 from me is ask the company about the interview format. Now, there's nothing wrong with asking for this in advance, and it actually shows the company that you're taking the interview really seriously. And sometimes the format will be a competency-based format, as I've mentioned earlier, or it might be more about just talking through your experience very informally. But what you want to know is what format's it going to be in, and also what would be really helpful is how many people are actually going to be there interviewing you, so you've got an idea before you get there. Tip number 6 is take your time to go through your notes and try and recall those scenarios in your mind so that you can really picture them as you go into the interview. Just write down little one-liners so that you can take those notes in with you, but just don't read them word for word. So it needs to be something that's natural. So use the notes to prompt you with those scenarios so you hit the criteria that you need to. Now I'm going to move on to tip number 7, which is your beliefs. What you're thinking. Now, it's really normal to feel like you're believing that you've got no chance getting the job, that you've got this little voice inside your mind that's telling you that there's someone better going for the job, or that they're going to offer the job to somebody internally and you won't have a chance. And that is imposter syndrome at its best. And it makes you feel like that you're not good enough. And we all suffer a little bit of imposter syndrome at some point in our lives. It's really normal, but yet it's really difficult. It's quite hard. And it's all about pushing through those little voices and not focusing on you. Focus more on what you can bring to the table, how you can be of service in this particular role that you're going for. Get in the positive mindset that they need you because you can offer them X, Y, and Z, which is really going to help them. So shift the focus, less about you and more about the amazing impact that you're going to make for them. And remember, the interviewers are also making a judgment on how you are going to fit into their team. So remember that. Tip number 8 is networking. So for networking, I want you to try and think of 3 circles. They've got the inner small circle, then you've got a wider circle, and then a wider circle still. And so what you need to do when you're networking is definitely start off with the inner circle of people that are surrounding you. People that you know really well, that you have relationships with. So this could be friends, ex-colleagues that you're really good friends with, an ex-boss perhaps that you're still really on good friendly terms with. and say to them, look, you want to talk to them in confidence. You know, I'm just testing out some avenues in this particular area. It's all confidential. But is there any way that you could introduce me to somebody who might be able to help, or give me some insider knowledge, or some information about the kind of software that's being used in these companies? Or is there a course that I might be able to put myself on? Just anything to give you a bit of a foot up the ladder. Then, if they introduce you to the third and fourth degree connections, your outer circles, then you can adapt the kind of language that you're saying. Instead of saying, you know, you're going down an avenue and you're exploring it, I would suggest changing your terminology and saying, I haven't made any major decisions yet, but I'm interested in finding out more about. So just be mindful about what you're sharing and how you're sharing it and who you're sharing it with. But you definitely need to get into the habit of sharing. It makes real good sense. So one of the ways you can do this networking online as well is join a Facebook group, but make sure you're finding a Facebook group that is full of people who are already in the role that you are applying for. So look for the names of those groups. So if you're looking for a creative director, look for those groups that are creative director groups. And explain to someone why you want to join the group if there's questions that need to get you in there. Then once you're in the group, you can search for keywords like interview or software, or openly ask the question. Just be honest and say, you know, I'm looking to get some information about what you might have been asked on your interview because I'm going for this kind of job. And you'll be really amazed about who will come back to you and answer your questions. And I think what else you'll do is you'll start the ball rolling with the load of comments, because there'll be other people in that group that maybe want to ask the same question as you and just haven't had the balls to do it. So I think you'll be really surprised about how many responses you'll get. And really, you're not going to lose anything by asking a question. So just have the balls, put the question out there, and network. Share and network. So really, really important tool that is. Tip number 9 is to dress appropriately. Really logical. I know this is common sense, but if you have one interview suit and you get that suit out of the cupboard like the day before your interview and suddenly you realise it's not fitting like it used to, and the 1980s are asking for the shoulder pads back, it's time to invest in a new winning suit. Similarly, if you're going for a job as, well, you're not going for a job as a soldier, but you know, your shoes are really important. The interviewer is going to be looking at the whole package. So make sure you're giving a really good first impression. Get the shoes polished and cleaned, or get new ones. Now, tip number 10 is plan your route. There is nothing worse than thinking you know where you're going, and then you get on the bus, or you get in your car, or you get walking, or you're on a train, and something goes wrong. You go down the wrong road, you're on the wrong train, and suddenly you're late, you know, and you really need to get there 15 minutes before you're needed to get in there. It's a massive thing. It's a really effective tip that my mum gave to me when I was first going for my first load of interviews in my early 20s, but it still remains an effective strategy for preparing for an interview, because there's nothing worse than seeing, you know, a candidate turn up late, flustered and sweaty. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you. Just let me know if that's happened to you. But it really puts you on the back foot, and all of those notes that you've got in your mental notes in your brain, you'll forget those. So those are my tips for preparing for an interview. And if you have any of your own, please share them below. Thanks.